Well, greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Duerrisms podcast, as powered by our friends at Advanced Physical Therapy for week 4 of the season. This guy and I keep changing back and forth with our podcast, but you get the same fun conversation
always
with two cool dudes every week, just going different places.
Cool, cool dudes.
Cool dudes is an overstatement if ever there is one. Of
hey,
course,
Banks thinks you're cool.
Well, and he's the only one that counts at this
That's
point,
right.
But he's also almost 3, so taste is not yet taken root at this point. The great Matt Schuckman is with me from Muddy River Sports, and as always, we start not sports.
Okay.
So I have a question for you. We've done the pop culture thing a bit. I want to talk to you about something that I know is a passion for you.
Oh, okay.
I know you love to travel.
Yes.
And I wanted to put this out there because I'm just curious. If price, if time was not an object, where is the one place in the world that Matt Schuckman or Matt and Michelle Schuckman really want to go more than anywhere else on the planet?
Alaska.
Alaska is your number one.
Is my number one. Now, I haven't traveled overseas a lot.
Okay.
I've done a little bit, but there's no place that pulls me right now.
Okay.
Like, some people would say Rome to see all the architecture and those things. Some people would love to go to Paris and all that, some of the European destinations. Some people would like to go to South America and experience the beach culture and all that. Nope. I want to go to Alaska. The other one would be Iceland.
Okay.
I think Iceland would be really cool. But Alaska, I want to visit Denali.
That makes a ton of sense, knowing how much you love the outdoors.
Yes, and so Michelle and I, as you well know, since we've been, engaged, since, we've done trips to national parks.
Right.
Across the nation. Badlands, Yellowstone, Rocky Mountain, we've gone. So coming up next year, our big plan is Glacier National Park.
Sure.
So we're going to take like almost a full 2 weeks.
There's almost a natural progression to this park trip for you, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and obviously I love going north.
Okay.
I love the sense of the tree lines and the outdoors and the pine trees. And, I'm not a guy that wants to go south. I don't want to go to Florida and go to the beach.
Right.
I want to go north and experience the deep woods, and the picturesque Montana landscape is what I'm really looking forward to next.
I always forget, too, that you've made the trip to Hawaii because you did that as part of Mizzou.
Correct. When I was covering the Tigers, I got to cover the Maui Invitational. So I've spent a week in Hawaii. I've been to Puerto Rico. I've done some of those things. But my passion right now is experiencing some of the great national parks this country has to offer, but especially the ones to the north.
Okay. Train trip, would it be the train through Denali? Is it kind of going on your own?
Well, the Denali one would be interesting. I would love to go on my own, but they don't let you.
Okay.
So I've done my research. You can go a certain part into Denali with your own vehicle, but after that, you're not allowed on your own vehicle.
Kind of makes sense, though, because it's so vast.
So they have some buses, they do some train, they have a variety of ways you can go to experience it. And so that would have to be planned out. Most of the trips we make, we plan it a little, but then it's fly by the seat of our pants. Like when we went to the Badlands, and I think I told you this, and I know I wrote about it at the time, we came, 30 yards from a bison. Like literally sat there and watched him walk from miles away, this little brown speck. And it got closer and closer and bigger. And it was awesome, but we only did that because we went off on a beaten path. And so I like to be able to have my own say in where I go and that kind of stuff. But I know there are some places you have to kind of follow protocol and when it comes to the trips.
We did Alaska Light when Carson was born, so it's been 26 years now. But we did it as a cruise, which is why I say light. You go on an excursion, whatever.
Yeah.
The one thing I will tell you about Alaska that I found super cool, not that there weren't a million things, but we went to this really weird old 9-hole golf course in Anchorage on a glacier, and it's just a goat path. But when you get close to the streams, like I hit too many balls close to the water, as you're well aware, but when you get close to the streams, there are giant king salmon in these little tiny streams spawning right there, which I thought was one of the coolest things ever.
That's awesome. Those are the things I want to experience. And Michelle and I have talked about, do we do a cruise, do those sorts of things. I don't want to do a cruise. I've never done a cruise, but I don't want to be stuck saying, okay, we're going to go to port here. So this is where you have to get off and do what, I want to go wherever I want to go.
Right. You don't seem like a one excursion gives me the whole sense of the area kind of guy.
No, and I'm not a guy that wants to go, for example, when we went to the Badlands, you could do the Badlands in one day. You could do it in a few hours.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But we rented a cabin inside the park.
Oh, how cool.
And it was the best thing we ever did, because then we could take our time. We could go back and see something we either saw earlier in the day and wanted to go back to. We figured out a way to do this and not rush through it.
I would put that experience driving into Badlands and getting that first look.
Oh, it's beautiful, gorgeous.
Ahead of Mount Rushmore, ahead of the Grand Canyon. To me, that was one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen.
Totally agree. Okay, so where would you want to go? We'll flip it. Where are you and Angie heading?
I have this fantasy because of what we do all the time. Yeah. You and I are constantly engaged in work, and I just want to get away from it all, and I'll never be able to afford it. But this idea of going to the Maldives and being on an island no bigger than maybe the block that we're on, it being a luxury resort, they take away your phone, they take away your shoes, and just be connected to nothing for a week, in the middle of the Indian Ocean, being a tiny speck on this earth that's so insignificant that all you do is watch the waves wash up on the sand. That to me would be incredibly cool.
So we have the similar thought of get away.
Get away from it all?
Yeah. You want the beach and the sand. Yeah. I want the log cabin in the woods.
Well, it makes sense because we both work very hard, which brings us to our work today.
Okay.
I know we're at week 4 of the football season.
Yes.
And we are at week 5 of the fall season, believe it or not.
It's moving quick.
It really has. I want to ask you, 3 C's here: concern, curiosity, confidence. Let's start with football. Who has your confidence at this point more than anybody? Who has your concern at this point? Because this is a critical juncture for a lot of teams. And who are you still curious about, either positively or negatively, or who's kind of jumped up for you football-wise?
Okay, my first C would be Monroe City.
That's your confidence?
That's my confidence. I think they are loaded. They have weapons at different levels. They have a defense led by one of the best tacklers we've ever seen.
I would agree.
So I think Monroe City and Keaton Pennywell, by the way,
right,
is who we're talking about. But I think Monroe City has that upside to it and just is going to continue to get better week by week. So I think confidence-wise, that's who there is. Concern, Quincy Notre Dame.
Okay.
Schedule-wise, makes that a concern. Obviously, the loss last week to Chicago Hope puts them at 1-2. So now you're thinking of, okay, are there only 2 more losses on the schedule? Are there 4 more wins on the schedule? You start looking at that, and then you also have the concern of they've had some guys get hurt. They've had some issues with cramping and that stuff to where they haven't been steady offensively. Can they get steady offensively? What's it going to take to make them steady and dynamic offensively? So I think there's concerns there that they have to address.
Before you move on to your next C, relative to Quincy Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They look like a different football team between the 30s and a much lesser football team offensively going from the 25s in. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
What's the problem with that right now?
Desire.
Okay.
To me, desire, effort. When you line up and you need 2 yards, you got to go get it.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to give it to you. You have to go get it. And they haven't gone and gotten it yet.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the big things there. I know that's a challenge or a call out to the offensive line, and I know that they may take it that way, but I know they have the capability of doing it.
You're not the only one doing that, because I was on that sideline and heard Jack Cornell say the very same thing.
So I think that's the other one. My curiosity, I'll go back to the Missouri side.
Okay.
South Shelby. Can they play with Monroe City this week? Because they're 3-0. Trey Countryman's a heck of an athlete at quarterback. He's got pieces around him. Like we talk about Monroe City having pieces, he's got pieces around him. Now, are they good enough to take on Monroe and maybe challenge for a CCC title? Are they good enough to be a postseason concern for Monroe? All those sorts of things. That's going to play out this week, but they've got my interest peaked.
That's a really good list, and I think all of those make perfect sense. I do applaud you for having the confidence to do Monroe City as your confidence pick this week, because I think we both know that's going to be a hard game either way for David Kirby's team, and I think he knows that.
I still think they're head and shoulders above everyone else on the Missouri side at that level. Obviously you can't compare them to a Hannibal, who's a full Class 4 school. So we're talking Class 1, even the Class 2 schools. So the small schools level, I think they are the cream of the crop on the Missouri side right now.
Let's talk about a couple of weird developments for last week before we get into the rest of fall sports.
Sure.
I thought the Palmyra defense delivered its best game of the season. Obviously it was a 14-0 game at Centralia, after the third quarter.
Right. 7-0 at halftime, 14-0 at the end of the third quarter.
We've seen Kevin Miles do, his work always crescendo.
Yes, it does.
Is this salvageable for Palmyra?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because I don't know if they're good enough offensively, if they can find the offense to make it salvageable. I think defensively, yes. When you talk salvageable, we mean have that build up to the districts and then be able to maybe go on a run to a district title. Defensively, I think they're on that trajectory. Offensively, it's been a struggle. They're going to have to change some things or find some things to make work to get better offensively.
I was disillusioned last week by Quincy High School's defense. The way they did not tackle, the way they did not play well against the run game, which I will admit I did not see coming.
I didn't either.
Okay. Is that a 1 week concern? Was that a fit with Moline, or is there a broader concern with that defense?
I don't think it's a broader concern. I think it's Moline found something that worked, lined up, and exploited it. Quincy High has to adjust to that. They have to figure that part out. But I think the base pieces of that defense are really good. It's when somebody starts to smack you in the mouth and do something that you're not prepared for or that you're not stopping, how do you adjust to it? And I don't think they made the right adjustments.
I'm going to stick with the Illinois side.
Okay.
Do we know anything at all about the top of the WIVC, even after last week with the Central Unity Showdown?
No, I think we'll know more after this week.
Okay.
Obviously we got 3-0 Brown County against 3-0 Central.
Right.
And so I think we'll see. And then we also have Jacksonville Route in that
playing
mix.
their best defense they've seen today in Unity pace.
So I think this week's going to tell us a whole lot of, is there a cream of the crop, or is it we've got three teams that are all going to be slobber knockering each other along the way, and then they're all going to go to the playoffs and see what happens. But we know, as we've seen over the years, these teams, when they battle, it's a true battle, especially when it comes to Brown County Central, that rivalry, and that's why I'm looking forward to Friday night.
So I don't know that it's quite the level of, say, knocking Bruce Douglas off the perch of Quincy High basketball all-time scoring.
Okay.
But when you are supplanting somebody named Phil Bradley in the Macomb program as the greatest passer in the history of Bomber football, that is no small accomplishment.
No, not at all. And it caught my eye, And obviously, we know that Jack Duncan's had a lot of success as the quarterback at Macomb. He's got weapons around him. And they're, they put up 50 points last week on
15 straight passes?
15 straight consecutive passes. First two were incompletions, and then 15 straight completions. That's pretty impressive.
It's a good day at the office.
That's a good day at the office. But, and so I'm paying attention to all that. You get good numbers. They beat Rova, which was undefeated at the time, and good win. And then I see, he passed Phil Bradley. And it's like, oh, wow. That name sort of resonates.
We're Mizzou guys.
Yes.
We know. You're a baseball guy through and through,
Yeah.
and you know the reputation. They named the field after Phil Bradley when he was too young to have a field named after him.
And
he was that good.
And growing up in this area, you knew he was from Macomb.
Yeah.
Macomb and QND back in that day, when Jeff Wellman was quarterback at QND and Phil Bradley was quarterback at Macomb, there were some real battles.
Yeah.
So, you knew who Phil Bradley was. And then, obviously, our ties to Mizzou, you have a deeper appreciation for him. I played a media versus Mizzou softball game with him on the team. I was the starting catcher for that group. He was playing third base.
That's pretty cool.
And it was fun. It was great because he hit one we played because we was indoors in the Hearn Center in the big field house. And he hit one that I think is still rattling in the rafters. But it was a blast. He threw a runner out at home, and I got to make the tag, and somebody got a picture of it. It was great.
That's phenomenal.
It was awesome.
All right, let's move away from the football realm for just a bit. Let's talk about your confidence, your concern, your curiosity with the fall sports teams. Is there anybody out there that you think is a surefire state championship contender at this point? Or do you have broad concerns about everybody?
I don't know necessarily I have broad concerns.
Okay.
But I don't know if we have a surefire state title contender because of some of the postseason paths these teams are going to have to take. If there is one, in my opinion, it'd be Quincy Notre Dame volleyball.
Okay.
But I also know that Macomb's looming out there.
Right.
So you gotta remember, I haven't seen Macomb in person yet.
Okay.
That's coming here in a couple weeks where Notre Dame goes to Macomb. I believe back-to-back nights, Notre Dame plays host to Southeastern and then goes to Macomb.
Okay.
Those are two big nights.
Those are huge nights.
So we're going to have a little more clarity on who the best 2A team in our region is at that point in time. But Notre Dame's loaded.
Okay.
The more I watch them, the more I go, wow. O'Fallon, which is a really good Class 4A team, they had to go 3 sets to beat them in the semifinals of the Lincoln tournament. I don't know if there's anyone around here in this part of the state outside of Macomb who can handle what Notre Dame brings to the table as far as serving, as far as power, as far as serve, receive, and passing.
I don't think gets said enough about their serve receive.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I've tried, the last couple of times I've written about them, it's written about their serving because it's just overwhelmed their opponent. But their serve receive is so good. And what you don't realize when you sit back and just kind of watch is, oh, here's a good pass, here's a set, here's a kill. Well, that pass is what sets it all up.
Right.
And you forget that sometimes because you get so enamored with the power.
That's the fault of Demon Television, which only shows you the set and the spike. We know we do that, but we're bad, and that's what people watch. But yes, you're dead on. All right, curiosity. I know you spent some time yesterday at the Running Raider.
Yep.
So it's a whole new world of cross country in our area, obviously, based on who we graduated. There's been some interest with soccer back and forth with Quincy Notre Dame, having some highs and some lows.
True.
Quincy High kind of in the same boat soccer-wise.
I think they kind of figured something out with their victory Tuesday night, the second half against United Township. Figured some things out. I think Notre Dame's one of those teams. Look at who they've lost to. They lost to Peoria Notre Dame, which is loaded.
Chatham Glenwood.
They lost to Chatham Glenwood, and they lost to Springfield High.
Right.
You're talking 3 outstanding 2A or 3A programs, okay? At the 1A level, I just don't know if there's going to be anybody in this sector of the state that can compete with Notre Dame when it's at its best.
Okay.
Quincy High, I think, has addressed some issues, and I think their effort and intensity, and I talked about it with the coaches afterward. A kid like Garrick Homan comes off the bench last night, and it's just this, he's beyond Energizer Bunny. I mean, he's but that kind of effort and intensity is what that team needed, and you could see the spark he brought to them, and Carter Venverlo is outstanding.
Yes.
So I think those pieces are there. The thing that intrigues me right now, curiosity,
yes,
is who's going to do something on the golf realm? Because we've got a lot of good golfers we've seen some really good moments. We've seen some moments where guys are hanging in there and playing tough. But I don't know if we've had anybody outside of Blake Arnold individually, but I don't know if we had a team elevate themselves or separate themselves from anyone else in the region.
I don't know that they've separated themselves, but I've been very impressed with both the Macomb girls and the Q&D girls and the elevation they've made because after number 1, both those teams had incredible doubts. And I would even argue Macomb had doubt at 1 because the Lily Vardaman to Trinity Christensen fall off, at least on paper, was going to be huge. And we've seen Lily get out of the gate well for Quincy University.
No question.
Which speaks to that.
It was a huge win for QU to get her in the recruiting.
It was.
realm.
So I think you're right. I think there's a lot there. Who are you concerned about at this point? Is there somebody that we thought was going to be really good that's either let you down, or is there somebody sputtering?
No, I don't know if it's let me down. I'm anxious on the softball side of things. We've seen Highland get off to a great start.
They have been.
So I think they're the team that has kind of elevated themselves. Canton, who I thought was going to be really good, has been good, but not outstanding good. Are they going to make that leap in Class 1 to where they could make a run to state? I think they have the capability of it. I just don't know if they've shown us enough yet to pencil in and go, maybe a trip to Springfield's in the offing.
I'll feed off that with my curiosity because it directly correlates from softball. North Shelby has been phenomenal. State ranked. Natalie Thrasher has pitched incredibly well. And you get back this really important piece who tore up her knee in softball last year in Caroline Lindberger, who was a big piece of what they were supposed to do basketball-wise. And she's back and she's been good. And they have a win over Canton to their credit.
Right.
And, they've played incredibly well. And they've got a big tournament this weekend that they're hosting with Scotland County there and some pretty good opponents. So they're kind of, to me, are they for real or not? That'd be my question.
The unfortunate thing for North Shelby, and it could be any sport, we could talk about this, is where they're located. Yeah. They're kind of in this spot where no media really sees them, so you don't know as much about them. And so that I think that adds to some of the intrigue and the curiosity. On the Class 2 level, I know Monroe City's had some big wins. I know they've played well. But there's a team looming out there that has a pitcher that I don't know if anybody can beat in the area in Macon.
Yeah.
So
Brooke Weimer is a ton, and she is. And she's got a little sister playing now, and they're doing some nice things. All right, let's get away from the high school realm just for a bit because I haven't had a chance to pick your brain about the really peaks and valleys start for Quincy University football yet
Right.
at this point. And I think you could make that argument now after last week for Culver Stockton football
I think so
as
too.
well. Your general take on the state of college football in our region right now, based on the fact that I think we've been surprised by some underachievement at times?
I would agree with that. I would say very lackluster at the moment as far as the college football scene has gone. Obviously, we were led to believe that there was going to be a much better performance for Quincy University against Glenville State. It did not happen. They did bounce back against a team they should have bounced back against. So I think there's the caveat there, is they were supposed to beat Trinity International as bad as they did coming into the season. You look at that, that's an NAIA program. They should have beat the snot out of them.
Okay.
They did. Okay, now we're going to find out if that team is capable of carrying that over, or are we going to see more of week one against Glenville State when they go to Walsh this week
and then have really get hard,
Yeah, and then Ashland and then the GLVC, and so there's some real challenges ahead for that group. Culver Stockton, I don't even know how to describe last week. 10 turnovers, 8 interceptions. That's a complete, and I get it. Jace Orndorff got ill, backup quarterback got hurt. You know, there were some issues there, but you got shut out. You turn the ball over 10 times. If you're the number 22 team in the nation, you don't do that.
You have a run game. And I don't know why the run game didn't materialize the way it should have, because at that point, if you're Tom Sally, you know, hey, we're not going to be a Jace Orndorff type team. We have these two backs who can get downhill quickly on people. Why weren't you pounding?
That's right. So I think there's serious concern there.
You wrote pretty eloquently this week about we've got some really good exports out there in the college football world. Some that get talked about a lot. You know, obviously it's nice to have Shamar back up at Truman State doing nice things. You know, Jack Marth has obviously been a spark from the get-go up there. But you also touched on two guys that I think really cool up at Monmouth College who are doing some incredible things. Corbin Personette, who led all of Division III last year, and I know he's one of your favorite dudes.
He is.
Sacks and tackles for loss. And then Carter Boyer, who played some quarterback last year, who turned into a superstar this weekend.
Oh, wow.
With 5 touchdowns for them.
Great.
And they
and a 61-yard touchdown
run.
run.
Yeah, a 61-yard touchdown run on top of everything else.
So, yeah, I think that's a great scene. It's a Division III school. And it's great to see the area kids do really well in those circumstances. Corbin Personette has gone from a really good 3-sport athlete at Pittsfield to a dynamic defensive end at Monmouth. He just tears people up. It just blows people up. And if you remember, a couple of years ago, Carter Boyer came in at quarterback in one of those great moments, of great comebacks in Monmouth, and I can't remember the exact circumstances right now. I remember writing about it, talking to him about it. But it was one of those, he had to come off the bench, and I think he threw a touchdown pass. Like, he came in the game with 5 seconds left and threw the touchdown pass to win the game. It was, I might be a little sketchy on the details there, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
So here's a kid who has spent his time, worked hard. Now he's getting an opportunity, and he's blossoming in his final year at Monmouth at quarterback. It's great to see. You know, he's from Illini West.
Yeah.
You know, so we got local kids doing things in a regional school, which is really awesome.
And I'm going to make that trip this Saturday, so going to get a chance to watch them play Illinois College and head over to Western Illinois from there. So looking forward to see those guys really go to work.
Where are you going Friday night?
So I know where you're going Friday night.
Yes.
I am going because I have not seen either South Shelby or Monroe City play. Heads up, I'm going to do that.
Good.
I'm sure I will be at Route Camp Point Central, you know, and I'm sure I will see Brown County and Route down the road.
Right.
Those were my WIVC plans. I can't pass up, especially after South Shelby put up 46 on the board against a pretty good Brookfield defense.
True.
I can't pass up the idea of seeing maybe the best defense in our area against maybe the most prolific passing offense.
We have 3-0 versus 3-0 on one side of the river. 3-0 versus 3-0 on the other side of the river. You got to pick one.
No, well, and I know
and they're so far apart, you got to pick one.
I know you love the dynamic of being at Mount Sterling, because I knew that would probably lead you that way, because it is one of the most unique fan experiences anywhere in the Tri-States, regardless of who you're a fan of.
Well, we're setting up the truck. We're going to do a halftime shuck on a truck. We're going to have some fun with it. So we're gonna kind of make it into an event.
Please make them put the Harleys away from you on the truck, or we will not hear a word that gets said for you on your Shuck on a Truck.
We've had some
Edgewise.
Conversation. I'm not sure where we're gonna set up yet. So.
By the way, nice to see Tyler Tomlinson on your Shuck on a Truck.
That was fun.
That was like old school, right?
That was a lot of fun. So we got some more plans coming up. We got a special coming up in October. We're gonna have a very special Muddy River breakdown with me and DOB every week. Our podcast.
Sure. Yes.
We're gonna have a couple special guests involved and share some memories of a good friend of ours. So that'll be coming up in October.
I think I know, and I think that's well appropriate. Again, if you haven't checked out the work, it's awesome every week. The man gives you stuff you can't find anywhere else. You can digest it at your. I have to wait a day afterwards because I finally catch up from work to catch. I'm like a day behind on Shuck.
Well, that's because
it's still worth.
That's because we're both up so late every night.
Yeah, ridiculous on schedules, but still good stuff. Again, the great Matt Shuckman. He's going to be back here not next week, the week after. We'll do this again. Week 6 at that point when I'm going to get your halfway award winners.
Okay,
because
cool.
We'll be at that point. And we have some really interesting debates on that front.
We're going to have a lot of fun debates on that. You're going to join me next week for What the Shuck?
I will indeed be there for What the Shuck. Always a pleasure. And again, a pleasure to be sponsored by the great people at Advanced Physical Therapy who back your sports, back our sports, back sports in this community in the area like nobody else.
Fantastic.
So, huge congratulations and thanks to those guys as well. We're all out of time. We'll see you right back here in 2 weeks.